Hello friends, my name is Amit Kumar Garg and today we are going to discuss about the Elasticsearch. In this session, I will show you how to install the Elasticsearch server and how to make connection using the Java client API towards the Elasticsearch. In the demo session, I will show you some of the basic example of how to create index, how to create a document inside the Elasticsearch server and how to fetch the record from the Elasticsearch. The agenda of this session is to show you how to install Elasticsearch on the Windows machine. Then we will see whether the installation is successful using the Postman. As Elasticsearch by default come up with the SSL enable, so to make the Java connectivity we need to have a trust store. So we'll show you how to create the trust store for the Java connectivity. After that we will see a demo to create an index using the SSL communication. In the next, we will show you how to disable the SSL communication, and then in the demo session we will show you how to create a document using the HTTP communication. At last, we will create a new user and will try to fetch this document using this new user. For the installation, we will have to first download the Elasticsearch server. This is the link of Elasticsearch official website to download the Elasticsearch servers. If I will click on this one, I will land onto this page where the operating system is by default selected. And if I will click on this Windows link, I will be able to download the latest version of the Elasticsearch. But if I do not want to download the latest version, I can go on to the past releases as well to download the other or the previous releases of the Elasticsearch server. I can select the operating system from this drop down as well if I do not want to download for the Windows but for the other operating system. I am not going to download it again as I already have been downloaded for this session. Once download is completed, we will be able to see one zip file. This zip file contains the Elasticsearch version, which is 8.4.1, and the operating system on which it is executable. To start the Elasticsearch server, we will have to unzip it. After unzip, go to the bin directory and open the command prompt here. To start the Elasticsearch server, type the command elasticsearch and enter. This will start the Elasticsearch server for us. Whenever we are creating the Elasticsearch or starting the Elasticsearch server first time on our machine, it will default user. The name of that default user is Elastic. And second thing, that the Elasticsearch server by default gets started up with the HTTPS enabled, the SSL enabled. So to make any request towards the Elasticsearch server, we will have to use the HTTPS. The username and the password of this default user will be printed here in the command prompt itself. This information gets printed only once whenever we are starting up the Elasticsearch server first time. So in the subsequent restart or the start of the server, this information will not be printed. So this is the information on which I am talking about. So you can see the password for Elastic user is this one. This information will be printed only once. So we will have to save this information somewhere. Okay, we already executed the steps mentioned on this slide, which is download the Elasticsearch server, unzip the package, go to the bin directory, start the command prompt and start the Elasticsearch server using the Elasticsearch command. Then we already have been seen this one as well. The Elasticsearch logs will print the default password for Elasticsearch user like below. This password will be printed only first time during the startup. By default, Elasticsearch server use port 9200 and HTTPS enabled. So our URL will be https://localhost:9200. To check this connectivity, we will be using Postman. We will have to enter our username and password for authorization and check whether we are able to make any connection towards the Elasticsearch. Now I have opened the Postman application. This Postman application is used to make any HTTP or HTTPS requests towards the any server. So we will be using this Postman server for our verification. So let me open a new tab and enter the URL https localhost 9200, and if I will try to send this request, you will see that we are getting some error, and this error is for the missing authentication credential for REST request. So what we'll have to do, we will have to enter the username and password. So go to the auth and select the basic auth. Enter the username. I already copied the information over the notepad, so I will copy the username here and password. Now if I will try to make this request again, I'm getting the successful response from the Elasticsearch server. It might be possible that you are getting some another error. Let me show you that one. If this SSL certificate verification is enabled and you are trying to make the request towards the server, you will be getting this error, could not get response because of the SSL verification is enabled. So to make the request towards the Elasticsearch successfully, you will have to disable this SSL verification, or you will have to enter the certificate trust store, which you can enter here. But as this adding the certificate is not part of this one, so we can get our work done using the SSL verification disabled. Now let us see how to create connection from the Java application to the Elasticsearch server. For this one, we will be creating a Maven project. We'll have to use the Java 8 or later version, and we need the below two dependencies. The first dependency is Elasticsearch-java, which is used to make connection towards the Elasticsearch server and to execute the Elasticsearch specific APIs. The second dependency is JSON databind. This dependency is required to convert JSON object to the Java POJO object and Java POJO object to the JSON objects. As we know, our Elasticsearch server is running on HTTPS. To make any connection towards the Elasticsearch server using the Java client, we will have to create a trust store. A trust store is a file which contains all the certificate authority on which my application trusts. So whenever we are making any request towards any server, it will first returns a certificate file and my application validate that whether it is from the valid certificate authority or not. If not, my request will be declined, and if yes, the connection will be successfully established with the server. So to generate a trust store, we will have to have a certificate authority. Elasticsearch provides us this certificate authority inside this directory, the home directory of Elasticsearch server /config/certs. This directory contains all the certificates are used to connect with the Elasticsearch server or to up the Elasticsearch server on HTTPS. To generate the trust store, we will have to execute this command on the command prompt, and the output of this command will be truststore.py12. This command takes input as a certificate authority and return as an output, which is the truststore.py12. This command takes the password as well, which is the store password, and I have given the password as a password itself. The no prompt is the input parameter, which means that we do not want any input prompt during the certificate creation. The store type is the pkcs12, and this key tool is the command tool which is from the Java itself. To generate the trust store, I am inside the Elasticsearch home directory. Let us move into the certificate directory. So cd config, cd certs, and here you can find out http_cscert file which is used to generate the trust store. So let me open the command prompt here. I already have been copied the command, so let me paste it here, edit, paste, and this is the command which is used to generate the trust store. So let me enter it. So once we will enter, we will be able to see one output which is certificate was added to the key store. And if I will move back to the window, you will find out truststore.py12 file has been generated successfully. Let us now write Java code to make connection with the Elasticsearch server. I already have been created a Maven project to save our time. Let me quickly go through one and make you understand what is happening here. So this is a simple Maven project has been created with the Maven archetype quick start. So here you can find out the default structure of the Maven: src main Java, src test Java, Maven dependencies. Java 11 we are using here, but we can use the Java 8 or any higher version. Okay, and let me quickly open the pom.xml file. You can see that the pom.xml file contains the two dependencies which we already have been discussed previously. One is the Elasticsearch Java, second is the JSON databind. Second thing you will find out here is that we are using the Java 11. We can use the Java 8 as well or any higher version. So here in src main java, you will find out the three examples here, which we will go through one by one. First example, which is the create elasticsearch index using https. Second is the get elasticsearch document with new user. Third is the elasticsearch document using the https. Let us quickly go through the first one, the create elasticsearch index using the https. To make connection with the Elasticsearch using the Java API, so first of all, we will have to create an Elasticsearch client object. This client object provides us the many useful API using which we can connect with the Elasticsearch and perform our actions. Let us create the Elasticsearch client object. So to create the Elasticsearch client object, we will first have to create the REST client, which is called as a low level client. Okay, so to create the low level client, we have a REST client class which has one static function which name as a builder, which takes the HTTP host as an input parameter. And we can create the HTTP host object using the three information. One is the host name, second is the port, and third is the schema, or you can say the protocol as well. So right now we are using the HTTPS protocol, so we are passing the HTTPS. If we are using the non HTTPS, then we will have to pass the HTTP here. So using this information, we create a REST client builder object, and from this builder having a build function using which we can get the REST client object. But this low level client needs some another information as well, which is the username and the password and our trust store to connect with the SSL communication, to make the SSL communication. These information we can pass through the HTTP client config callback interface. So Elasticsearch provide us the interface, and we will have to implement this interface if we want to pass this information and make connection to the Elasticsearch. So we have implemented this interface here within the same class. I have implemented it. So we are implementing this interface, and this interface has one function which is the customize HTTP client. So in our case right now, we will have to pass the two information. One is the username and password, second is the SSL information. So to pass this information, first of all we will have to create the object of credential provider class, and then we will have to pass this credential provider to the HTTP client builder. This HTTP async client builder object has been passed by the Elasticsearch itself. We don't have to create it manually. So first of all, we will create an object of basic credential provider. Then we will create an object of username password credential. This username password credential has a constructor which needs the two parameters. One is the username. In our case, it is the Elastic, and second is the password. So once we have these two parameter or these two objects created, we will have to pass this information to the credential provider. This credential provider need two input parameter. One is the auth scope, and second is the actual credentials. The auth scope is the authentication scope, specify the details like host name, first name, port name, realm name, or any authentication schema. Right now I am passing any. It means that I do not prefer any specific host name or something. And this information also used when we are using the third party credential software. Just like let's assume that I am using the key cloak for my credential, then I will have to pass this information. But right now I'm using the inbuilt functionality, so I don't need to pass any specific host name or port name. We can use the auth scope as a any. The second thing which we will have to pass related to the SSL related information. So SSL related information, we will have to pass the trust store. So this is the location where we have created the trust store, which is right now located here, the trust store location. Using this file, we will have to create a file object, the Java file object, and then we will have to create a SSL context object. Again, we have one builder class which is the SSL context builder, which provides which takes this information and give us the SSL context builder object. So SSL context.custom.load trust material, which takes the two input parameter. One is the trust store location file, means the file location. Second is the password. So if you remember that we are using this command to generate the trust store, and we are passing password as a password, so I am using the same password here. So it will give us the SSL context builder object, and using the build function we will be having the SSL context. I will set both of the information HTTP client builder inside the HTTP client builder, I have set up the set default credential to the credential provider and set the SSL context to the SSL context, and then we'll finally return this object. This object is already created by the Elasticsearch itself. We don't need to create it manually, but we will have to implement this interface. Okay, once we have this interface implemented, we have the HTTP client callback object ready, and this HTTP client callback object we will have to set the REST client builder. So REST client builder have one function which is the set HTTP client config callback. I will pass this information, and then finally we will call the build function over this, which will give us the REST client object. Now we have the low level client ready with us. Using this low level client, we will have to create a Elasticsearch transport object. So we have a REST client transport class which requires the two input parameter. One is the low level client, second is the mapper. So this mapper, as I told you before as well, the mapper is used to convert our Pojo class to the JSON format, or the format which Elasticsearch understand. Second, it converts the response received from the Elasticsearch towards the Pojo, so that we can use the Elasticsearch Java client API properly. So once we have the transport object ready, we are ready to create the Elasticsearch client object. So we pass this transport object to the Elasticsearch client, and we will get the Elasticsearch client object here. Now once we have the Elasticsearch client created, we will have to create another class object which is the create index request. So create index request is responsible to create any index inside the Elasticsearch. So first of all, in this example or in this demo, I will show you how to create Elasticsearch index using the Java API. So create index request again have a static class which is the builder. You can see it here that the static class has been created, the builder class. So we will have to create the object of this builder. We create this object, then we have a function that create index builder dot index and pass your name of the index which you want to create. I have passed the tacognite here, and then we finally call the build function which will give us the object of create index request. Second thing, from this client we will call a function which is the indices. This indices will give us the Elasticsearch indices client object. This class is responsible to give us the all the existing indices from the Elasticsearch server, to create the new indices. If we want to save or if we want to update any indices, then also we will have to use this class. So I am getting the object from our Elasticsearch client object of this indices object, which is the Elasticsearch indices. And this indices has the functions, the many useful functions, as I told you before, that the create indices, update indices, delete indices, or we can retrieve all the existing indices created inside the Elasticsearch. So we will have to call the indices dot the create function and pass the create index request object. Once we will call this function, it will create an index with the name of tacognite inside the Elasticsearch, and if it is successfully created, it will give us the Elasticsearch index, the create index response. So let me quickly show you that I do not have any indices created with the name of tacognite. So the way we can do it, that we will have to pass the URL first, https localhost 9200/tacognite. Tacognite is the name of indices which I want to create inside the Elasticsearch. And again we will have to pass the basic auth, the username and the password, and this is the get call I am making towards it. So let me quickly do it. This response I already have been checked it. Let me quickly do it, and you will able to find out that the no index found. Now if I will move back and run this class, that run as Java application. So let me save it. So if I will call the run as Java application, you will see that the index created successfully has been printed now. And if I will go back to the our Postman and will try to make this request again, you will see that the response code is 200. Okay, and now we are able to see the successful response from the Elasticsearch. That means we this class has created an index towards the Elasticsearch successfully. Now let us move back to our presentation. And in our last demo, we have shown you that how to make a SSL communication towards the Elasticsearch. In our next demo, we will insert some data in our index created in the previous demo, which is the tacognite. but this time we will be inserting the data using the HTTP connection. So I will show you how to make HTTP connection towards the Elasticsearch. So before that, because we know that our Elasticsearch server is running on the HTTPS, so before that I will have to disable the SSL communication inside our Elasticsearch server. So how we can do that one? To disable the SSL communication, we will have to go inside the home directory of Elasticsearch and then the config directory. Here we will find one elasticsearch.yml file, and then we will have one property defined in elasticsearch.yml file, which is the expect.security.http.ssl. We will have to disable this property. We will have to set the false to run our server on HTTP. Let me quickly show you this one in the demo. I am in the home directory of Elasticsearch server now. So let us go inside the config folder and find the elasticsearch.yml file. Open it over the notepad++ and try to find out the property, which is the expect.security.http.ssl.enable. So to run our Elasticsearch server on HTTP, we will have to keep this property as a false. I have saved this. Let me save this file and go back to the bin directory of our Elasticsearch server. I have already shut down my Elasticsearch server, which was running on HTTPS. So if I will run it again, it will not complain me that Elasticsearch server is running. Quickly run it, Elasticsearch server, and this time the Elasticsearch server will run on the HTTP because we have set up that property of the SSL as a false. So let me go to the Postman, and if I will try to make the HTTPS call, I will get some error. Let me quickly check whether the server has been started. Yeah, server has been started now. Let me send the request, and you can see that the connection error, I got this error. But I will make the request as a HTTP, I will be able to find out the result again. So you can see that over the HTTP call, now I am getting the result, and you will have to remember that we still have to pass the username and the password. We have just disabled the HTTPS call. So in this demo, we will insert some document using the HTTP API call towards the Elasticsearch. We will insert our data inside our Techognite index, which was created previously. So before that, we will first have to create the Elasticsearch client object, and this time this Elasticsearch client will make a HTTP call towards the Elasticsearch. So to make the HTTP call object, we will have to first create the REST client builder, and if we do not pass any protocol related information, by default it use the HTTP only. Next is the HTTP client config callback. We will have to create it HTTP client config callback to pass the username and the password. Previously I have shown you in the separate class, but this time I'm using the anonymous class. So we will create the credential provider object, and this time if you will see that we are using the auth scope. Previously we are passing the auth scope.ne. This time I'm passing some specific host name and the port name. We can use anyway, but I just wanted to showcase that we may have this elastic user created outside the Elasticsearch server, and we can pass this relevant information. We can set up our Elasticsearch server in that way and pass the relevant information to validate our user. So I'm using the auth scope here. Then we are creating the username password credential object as previously, and then passing this credential information towards the credential provider, and then finally we are passing this to HTTP client builder, calling this set default credential provider. We don't need to pass the SSL related information because we are making a HTTP call this time. Finally, once we have this callback ready, we will pass this information to our builder, the REST client builder, and then we will call the builder.build function, which will give us the REST client object. Then we will create a Elasticsearch transport object, and finally we will create the Elasticsearch client object. So now we have the Elasticsearch client object, which will make HTTP call towards the Elasticsearch. As we have index client created, let us prepare the data which we want to insert our Techognite index. So I have created a technology class which has the three variables, the class label variable, which is ID, name, and self rating. I will insert all the values. So ID is 100, Java, name is Java, and the self rating is 9 out of 10. Once we have data ready, we will have to create the object of index request, and this index request again having a builder as a static class. So we'll create the object of builder class, and then this builder needs some input parameter like the index name in which we want to insert the data. So we have given the index name as a tacognite. Then the ID of the data. If we do not pass any ID, Elasticsearch will itself generate a unique ID for our index. But if we will pass the ID, it will use that ID. So we want to pass the 100 as a ID for our index. Third thing is the document. Document is the actual data which we want to insert for this index. Finally, once we have all the information ready inside the index builder, we will call the build function and we'll get the index request. At last, we have the client, the Elasticsearch client dot index function, which takes the index request as an input parameter. And if I will call this as a run a Java application, it will insert this data inside our tacognite index and give us the response as an index response if it is successfully created. Let me quickly show you that we do not have any index created with the 100 ID. So I already have been created like HTTP call we are making this time, HTTP localhost 9200 slash tacognite slash underscore doc slash 100. 100 is the ID which we want to pass inside our tacognite index, and we will have to pass the auth information. If I will make this request, I will get as a 404 not found, because there is no ID present inside our tacognite index, so it will say the found as a false. And if I will run this class as a run as Java application, so see, the run as Java application has been called and it says the index with version 1 has been created. If I will try to fetch the information again from the Elasticsearch and will execute this API again, I'm calling this send, and you will see that this time I'm getting the 200 response, and we have the ID 100 with the name Java and self rating is 9 out of 10 has been created. If I will change the ID, if I will create it as a 200 and will execute this API again, you will see that this will also gets created inside our Elasticsearch. So let me quickly call the 200, and this time we can say that the same data has been replicated. So but this time you know that this time we are making a HTTP call towards our Elasticsearch. This is not the HTTPS call. In our next demo, we will try to fetch the information from the Elasticsearch server which we have inserted, but this time we will not use the default user. So previously we are using the default user created by the Elasticsearch itself, it was Elastic, but this time we will be creating a new user ourselves and we'll use that user to fetch the information from the Elasticsearch. To create a new user, we will have to go inside the bin directory, and Elasticsearch provides us a tool which is Elasticsearch-users, which takes the three input parameter. One is the user add, which is the username, second is the -p, which is the password, and -r as a role. So if I will execute the below command, it will create a user which is Elastic admin with the password Elastic admin and having the role as a super user. Let us quickly create this user. I am now inside the Elasticsearch bin directory. Let me quickly open the command prompt here. I already have been copied the command. Let me paste it. And once I will enter this one, it will create a user with the name of Elastic admin, having the password as the Elastic admin with the role as a super user. If I will enter this one, if this command has been successfully executed, it will just exit it, and the Elasticsearch user has been created now. Okay, let us quickly get the Elasticsearch document with the new user. So I have a class created for this one, get Elasticsearch document with new user. We will first have to create a Elasticsearch client object. If I will quickly show you that this time we are passing the Elastic admin as a username and Elastic admin as a password, which we have just created, and we are showing this example with the HTTP call. Okay, so once we have the Elastic client created, we will have to create an object of get request, and again the get request has a static class which is the builder. We will create the object of this get request builder. We will say that the on which index we want to search, which is the tacognite, and on which ID I want to fetch it, which is the 100. Okay, so once we have the get request builder object ready, we will call the get request dot build function. We will get the request, and then we have the client, the Elasticsearch client have a function which is the dot get, which takes the two input parameter. One is the get request, second is the output format in which the output will be coming. So if I will not pass it, it will just give us the get response in the object format. But if I will pass the class name as well, it will first convert our response into the object, the technology object, and then give us the response. If I will run as Java application, see, the 100 Java 100 is the ID, Java is the technology, and the 9 out of 10 is the self rating which I am getting right now. If I will search for the 200, because we have inserted the two document, if I will run it again, you will find out the result for the 200 as well. 200 Java 9 out of 10. But this time we are not using the default user, we are using the user created by ourselves. By this last example, we are now at the end of this tutorial. If you have any question regarding this tutorial, you can write in the comment section and I will try to answer all your queries as soon as possible. Second, if you like this session, please press the like button. Also subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.